Yeah, good morning, everybody. Let's call the meeting to order. Can we ask the committee secretary to acknowledge our guests? Thank you for coming.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Director General Rodel Dasil. From the Department of Finance, we have Yusek Jeremias and Paul Jr. From the BIR, Assistant Commissioner Marisa Cabreros. Executive Director of the National Tax Research Center, Ms. Trinidad Rodriguez. From the Department of Budget and Management, Assistant Director Mercedes Navarro. The Department of Tourism, OIC Tourism Development, ASEC Benito C. Bengson, together with Director Purificacion Molintas. We also have from TIAZA, Attorney Nino Aquino, Department Manager. From Compete, we have Team Leader Dr. Mario Lamberte. From the Small Business Corporation, OIC and President and COO, Ms. Maria Luna Cacanado. Co-Negosyo Executive Director, Mr. Ramon Lopez. President of Courage, Mr. Ferdinand Gaite. From the Subic Bay Metropolitan Authority, Chief of Staff Attorney Michael Angelo Villamor. Chairman of the Authority of the Freeport Area of Bataan, Administrator Deo Custodio. From PEZA, Deputy Director General for Operations, Ms. Mary Harriet Abordo. From Clark Development Corporation, Assistant VP for Marketing, Ms. Evangeline Tejada, and Senior Legal Officer, Attorney Noel Mina Meneses, also from Clark. From the Basis Conversion Development Authority, Manager for Corporate Planning, Mr. Eduardo Policarpio. And from PowerPoint Management Corporation, VP for Airport Operations, Ms. Josefa Catherine Baga. Senior Director of SGV, Attorney Stephanie Vicente Nava. Attorney Jaffe Azaraga, Tax Senior Manager of Isla Lipana. And Chairman and Senior Partner, Attorney Alex Cabrera, also of Isla Lipana. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Bernardine. Good morning, everybody. We have quite a packed agenda this morning, so we wanted to start early. We have 5 items on the agenda. Most of them are new. The first 4 are, the last one is new, rather. The first 4 are bills that we've already previously tackled. So first is the TIMTA, or the Tax Incentives Management and Transparency. And the parliamentary status here is that the DOF and the DTI were supposed to iron out a common version that was pursuant to the agreement reached in committee last May 28. So May 28, it's been over 2 months. Has there been any progress on that, Yusek?
Mr. Chairman, we've met with DBM, DTI, BOI, and the DOF with Secretary Domingo. And insofar as the principles of the bills are concerned, there has been agreement in principle. But the latest one is that DTI wants to, and we already have a draft, but DTI wants to go over it again, essentially looking at how it's going to be operationalized. But the main changes, Mr. Chairman, is that instead of putting it in the GAA, it was clarified by DBM that it should now be included in the BESF. And since it's automatically appropriated, it will now be incorporated in the NEP, or the National Expenditure Program. The other principles of having a database and having DOF, the IPAs and the other government agencies are required to submit to DOF the amount of tax incentives and other data was essentially taken from the provision of Senator Recto's bill. I hope, Mr. Chairman, that we can pass this bill soon, because this by having transparent way of what, because one could argue that by providing incentives, the Congress is actually giving up their power of the purse. So it is really a transparency measure, Mr. Chairman, so that we will get a handle of how much we're giving away and how much, anong kapalit nun. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I would like to recognize Senator Nancy Binay, member of the committee. Thank you for coming, Senator Binay. You notice, Yusek, with these bills that that the DOF has prioritized, the TIMTA, the fiscal incentives rationalization, and the customs modernization. Before we adjourned, we were having weekly meetings. This is really because the committee is sharing your urgency, but it seems that the committee is it seems the urgency is more pressing in the committee than in the departments, because the self-imposed deadlines are not being met, no? So I don't know. Should the committee give you a deadline so you can come to an agreement? I just don't understand how can the government prioritize these bills, but at the same time it's the government who's not on agreement as to a single version of the bill.
Mr. Chairman, if you look at the history of I too am I'm at a loss of words, Mr. Chairman, because you're right. The DOF and DTI have to agree, right? And this has been a long-standing debate. But we are really more hopeful now under this administration. We're just konti na lang. I agree that there should be a deadline, then maybe we should dapat finish or not finished. Nag-submit na kami. Ilang beses na kami nag-submit, so kailangan siguro finish or not finish, pass the paper. Yeah, we'll give
We're giving you every opportunity to come forth with a unified version that Congress is willing to support. Sige. This is, for the record, this is the fourth meeting already of the TIMTA bill, no? And we're still awaiting your version, your unified version, which you promised.
We already have a version, Mr. Chairman, which we've agreed on already with DBM. And I think the last...
Meron tayong version, yeah. Can you submit that version to us, please? Even if it's still awaiting comments of the other agencies.
Yeah, we already emailed it to the Senate, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. You said it would be very useful if you submit the data before the hearing, rather than the day before or the day of the hearing. So you give us a few days, because we cannot reset the hearing because we've invited all these resource persons. So we need to process that data also, no, to have a better hearing.
Submitted it. Was it last week?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Sige, let's leave TIMTA and we'll wait for that the preferred version of the DOF. I would like to recognize Senator Bam Aquino. He's the author of some of the bills here on our agenda today on income tax and on marginal income earners. Okay, so just on the same status on fiscal incentives, we at the last hearing last May 28, again, it's the two government departments na hindi nagkakasundo, yung DOF and DTI. Yung DOF gusto yung kita ng gobyerno, yung DTI gusto yung investor at mga trabaho. So talagang parang hindi nagsisi eye to eye talaga yung dalawang grupo dito. You promised a unified version by the end of July. Am I correct, Yusek?
Mr. Chairman, In fact, we wanted the earlier version pero humirit yung DTI, di ba?
Ah.
So, we agreed on a later date and nire-review pa rin ng DTI yung version namin. So, I think we should apply the same principle, finish or not finished.
Okay, pero so, anyway, yun nga sabi ko, walang sisihan dito, ha? We've given you every opportunity. We're giving you every opportunity. At last, am I just correct to say that at the last hearing of May 28, you promised to give us a unified version by the end of July?
Yeah, yes, Mr. Chairman, because we already have an agreement on principle with the secretary level on certain principles there. It's just in the drafting of the bill, because
Hindi, ganun talaga.
Yeah.
The principles are easy, always
Yeah.
easy. It's the details
siguro,
that's
Mr.
very
Chairman,
difficult.
I think
What you promised was a bill, not a,
Yeah,
not a,
we
not
already
a set of
submit-
principles. Because
yes,
a set of
we
principles,
already- yeah.
step backwards. yun.
nagbigay na po kami kasi it takes two to tango naman, di ba? I mean,
Yes,
even
yes.
if we've given that, I think, Mr. Chairman, we'll just have to force the issue with our colleagues in the DTI. Siguro,
Okay, we'll set
before
we'll set a reasonable deadline
Yes.
for all the departments to submit,
Yes.
and then we will finalize the
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
the version. But before we do that, we have requested also very important data for you for this particular bill. Just like in the TIMTA bill, we wanted you to operationalize the data, the actual data for 2011, 2012, and 2013. Can you do that also? We asked you for, have you submitted that?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, in fact, under the proposed 2015 budget in the BSF, meron na yung tables on the tax expenditures by investment promotion agencies. Perhaps DBM can give more details on this.
Sige, we'll go into an extended discussion later on. How about for the fiscal incentives? Na I understand your favored bill is the Legarda bill, di ba? That's the DOF sponsored bill. So have you put in the data for incentives through that lens of the Legarda bill?
Essentially, yun yung sinasabi kong attempt to quantify the tax expenditures because they are somehow related to the fiscal incentives. So yun, sir.
I agree it's related, Yusek, but it's somewhat different in the sense that you really have to itemize how much each sector will be affected, di ba? That's the data we're asking from you. Wala pa yon. It's been over 2 months since we requested that data. Di ba, you gave us data saying that I think for 2011 or for 2012, may 140 billion tayong binigyan na incentives, di ba? And about 116 billion was PESA incentives, di ba? Tapos ang tanong ko, alin yung maapektuhan ng fiscal incentives dito? Yung PESA, yung BOI? I said, can you please itemize? And then you said you would give us the data. So, inaantay po natin yung datos na yun. Because really, how can I convince my colleagues if we don't have, if we have not,
Mr. Chairman,
please don't interrupt me, Yusek. I'm not finished yet. How can I convince my colleagues here to approve those bills if I cannot even put the numbers before them? And, di ba? Kasi, everyone wants to know how much talaga will we save by rationalizing fiscal incentives. Baka naman it's not worth the investment opportunities we're giving up. Diba? That's really yun ang punot dulo ng fiscal incentives bill, diba? How do we get that right balance between investments and revenue? So again, we reiterate our request, and this bill will not go to plenary until you've given us these figures operationalized. Yusek, okay? For 2011, 2012, and 2013. This is, for the record, the 5th meeting of the rationalization of fiscal incentives. So, since we cannot really proceed without it's difficult to take the dialogue further without the data, let's now go to,
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Senator
Siguro,
Binay.
can we set a deadline
Yes.
for that data?
What is a reasonable deadline for the agencies? Is the DTI here? PESA is here, I see. Si Harriet. DTI? The DTI is not here. You're smiling. Are you from the DTI?
Business corporation.
Small
or
business.
Attached agency.
Wala ba kayong USEC or secretary dito? Wala. You're from the DOT, no? Sec. You cannot speak for the DTI.
Sir, we invited DTI, but they sent a representative for the marginal income earners.
Okay, so the committee sent a invitation to DTI, but they only sent one for the marginal income earners bill. So maybe I can ask my colleague what they feel is a reasonable deadline for the data. Senator Bam, Senator Nancy, what would you feel is a reasonable deadline? Yes, please. Yeah.
We already computed the revenue for GAN.
They punch it through the data, but they have to punch it through the bill to see how much you will use.
Mr. Chairman, we already computed the revenue for GAN. Ano yung kapalit is really debatable from the standpoint of the implementing agencies. May I suggest, Mr. Chairman, that we somehow adopt the CHESA formula, because they essentially agreed to a cap on the amount of incentives that they will provide.
What is the CHESA formula?
Essentially, how do you balance? So they will come up with a figure and they will essentially hanggang dito lang kami. Then kung for purposes of programming, then kung if some opportunity comes, then there's an opportunity again to review. It cannot be a blank check, Mr. Chairman.
That's too general already. I think we're at the level of details already, Yusek, no? When we ask for data, we want you to use your preferred bill, which is the Legarda bill, and we want you to use actual data, which is 2011, 2012, 2013, punch the data through these fiscal incentives and see for the next few years, the short to medium term period, how much revenue will be gained by the government. And then I will ask the DTI to try to project what will be the impact. Okay, but we've been discussing for 2 months.
Mr. Chairman, meron na kasi kaming figures. It's just that...
could you give us an initial indication of those figures? Yusek, you can give us a ballpark figure, like if we take away BOI incentives for certain industry, we will get this much in revenue. For this industry, we will get this much.
Yeah, for example, the revenue impact estimates on the compromise bill on fiscal incentives. There's a first option. We're talking about the 4-year ITH, 5% 5% gross income earned of 11 years. The gain, net gain, Mr. Chairman, is about the present NG revenue for the first 15 years is 372 billion. The proposed revenue there for the first 15 years is 418 billion. So the revenue impact is 46 billion, Mr. Chairman. And for the BY, can I provide you this data?
Chair?
Yes, Senator Binay.
Hindi ho ba pwede,
Can you furnish the members with the...
hindi ho ba
With the
pwede
copy.
sa susunod na hearing, maybe Yusek Paul can make a presentation na may table dyan, tas
Yeah.
talagang detailed explanation para it's easier to understand.
Correct. I think that's
Kasi minsan nalilito kami with all the figures na binabato nyo sa amin. Siguro mas maganda, kunyari, TIEZA, ito yung mga incentives, ano yung
babawasan?
ano mababawasan, ano yung madadagdag.
Ano yung revenue
and
impact?
Siguro both from the DOF and from the DT.
That's precisely what we've been asking for the last 2 months, Senator Binay. Thank you for supporting. Parang may communication gap dito but you seem to understand it, so I don't know why the DOF does not understand it. Can we ask for that for the next meeting? When can we get that this is different from the deadline we're going to set for all the agencies, USEC, no? This is the DOF presentation on your priority bill, which, by all expectations, we presume you've done your math already there, the number crunching. So, to make your argument. Like that argument, that figure you cited, 370 billion. That is for what?
The under option 1, the present fiscal incentive system. Then then there's a separate column for the proposed. We will give you a copy.
But we want a breakdown, Yusek.
Yes, sir.
We don't want that general figure that the secretary or the commissioner is throwing around 200 billion additional revenue. We're past that already. We're looking for the breakdown already. Kasi nakita na natin na
Yes, sir.
140 billion yung total incentives for sa 2011 or 2012. Yeah. So 140 billion yung total for 2011 eh. So it must be in that ballpark, di ba? You break down the 140 billion. So can we get that in 2 weeks?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
2 weeks, okay. Senator Bam Aquino.
Yusek Paul, the version of Senator Legarda is the one you're supporting?
Yeah, more or less, Mr. Chair. But since we're under discussions now with DTI, then there will be a...
Well, for the body's information, Senator Bam, the DOF version is that of Senator Legarda and Congressman Kisumbing in the House. And
Okay.
the DTI version is that of Senator Villar.
Okay, but this version of Senator Legarda, for example, so in total, you support all of the provisions of here, or will there be further
There will be
suggestions?
further, because we have to have a modus vivendi with DTI.
DTI, no? Okay.
So
Okay,
2
sige,
weeks.
so see you in 2 weeks. I guess moot na rin yung discussion at this point. Let's have a consolidated version as soon as possible among the agencies. And then if you could also give your comments ahead for each provision, no? Because well, there's some provisions here which I like. No, I'm a little surprised that you're supporting all of this. No, but in any case, once you have that consolidated version with DTI, at least we can get the ball rolling in terms of discussing. But I think the chairman is right. It's very difficult to move forward if the agencies still aren't, in consonance, first of all, and secondly, if we don't have the data to really look at things, no, properly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Aquino. So let's leave na muna yung fiscal incentives and TIMTA. Let's go to the marginal income earners. That's the bill of Senator Aquino. So we'll give the floor to Senator Aquino to sponsor. There are 3 bills here. One is by Senator Recto. 3 measures rather. 2 bills, and one is by Senator Recto, one is by Senator Aquino. And there's a resolution also filed by Senator Aquino.
Yes, I'd like to seek the support, of course, of my colleagues. Senator Angara, I know, is quite keen on this bill. Senator Nancy, as Chairman of Social Justice, I'm sure will also be quite supportive of this bill, no? But we'd like to get a formal response from BIR. I think the last time, this is not the first hearing, no, Mr. Chairman, regarding the MIE. This is not the first one? Is this the first one? Okay, great. So basically, for the benefit of everyone here, the MIE bill basically exempts minimum income earners at the same level as minimum wage earners. No, in the same way that if you're a minimum wage earner, you don't pay your taxes or you're exempt from taxes. A minimum income earner is basically someone who is not in the private sector or in the formal economy, but does earn money, no? So we're talking about your vendors, your sari-sari store owners, basically your informal economy. And there have been cases where sometimes the local BIR actually tries to collect from them, even if what they're earning as a take-home pay is actually less than what minimum wage earners earn. So the idea of this bill is basically to make the minimum wage exemption also cover those who are earning minimum marginal income, no? And again, we're talking about basically people in the lowest socioeconomic classes in the Philippines, or basically the poor. So in short, this MIE bill, and I'm happy that there are multiple versions of this, basically formally exempts the poor from paying taxes, no, and releases them from any possible harassment that can be placed upon them. So I'd like to, of course, seek the support of the chairman, and also maybe if the different groups here have comments also, you're free to comment, no? We have BIR, DOF. I'm sure Go Negosyo would want to also give some comments on this, as well as SB Corp, no? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Aquino. Can we get the comments of the... Well, we'll start with the DOF again, as usual, and the BIR, please.
Mr. Chairman, I think when this was essentially brought to the attention of Secretary Prisima, I've talked to Commissioner Henares, and she essentially said that there would be a need for a change of law. Rather that's why in terms of principle, if you're saying essentially that you're essentially making it at par with the minimum wage earners, in principle, I think there should be no objection there, because if Congress has already agreed that minimum wage earners should be exempt, then you're essentially putting them at parity. But I'm not sure, Mr. Chairman, as to how this is going to be operationalized, because for minimum wage earners it's very easy, pero kung minimum income earners, it's going to be administratively cumbersome. I don't know, maybe the BIR would be in a better position, because by underreporting, one can essentially escape that threshold. So I perhaps we can have the BIR comment on the operational implications of that.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Administratively, I agree with what was mentioned by Undersecretary Paul. For the minimum wage earner, it's easy because there's a threshold amount. But for those engaged in business, we are dependent on the voluntary declaration of the income recipient, the self-employed. That's why sometime in February of 2014, the BIR did issue Revenue Memorandum Circular 7-2014, where in defining who are considered as marginal income earners, we said that these are individuals engaged in the activity principally for subsistence or livelihood. So this include but not limited to agricultural growers, producers, farmers, fishermen, selling directly to ultimate consumers, small sari-sari stores, small carinderias or turo-turos, drivers, operators of a single unit tricycle, but should not include licensed professionals, consultants, artists, sales agents, brokers, and others similarly situated, including all others whose income have been subjected to withholding taxes. Because we want to zero in just as you said, those in the informal sector like the sari-sari stores, the tricycle drivers.
Yeah, Assistant Commissioner Cabreros, now, what was the cap, the gross sales receipts cap of that memorandum circular?
What is mentioned here is the 100,000 threshold gross sales or receipt in any 12-month period,
okay,
which was lifted from an old issuance way back in 1994. But once and for all, we welcome this bill to put order, because we've searched for the basis for the 100,000, and it was just an issuance way back in 1994 which got lifted and carried all the way to present, but it's not in the law itself.
Exactly. So there are two problems with that issuance. Now, one is that there's no legal basis. And secondly, is that if you did implement that 100,000 is a 1994 figure. So in short, kung ang sari-sari store owner mo nagbebenta ng 600 pesos per day, which to be frank is small already, madali siyang aabot sa threshold ng 100,000 in a year. Diba? So in effect, that memo, and this was of course, Yusik Paul knows this, no, sent a letter, no, requesting that you look into this memo again. In effect, yung 100,000 limit is moot. Because kahit po yung ating sari-sari store owner, your vendors, will immediately surpass your 100,000 limit. In short, wala rin kayong na-exempt. Diba? And that was basically my point in that letter that I sent Secretary Purisima. And the response was, actually, there is no law to back this up, so we need the law. So now we have the law. Now, let me ask, ano ba yung, what is the policy of BIR with regard to minimum income earners? If I'm not mistaken, sa batas ho natin, lahat pwedeng i-tax. Tama po ba?
Yes. With reference to the implementation of the minimum wage earner, we are reliant on the reporting of the employers. And then the cross-checking there is their alpha list that is being submitted by the employer, and we match it with the wage board declaration of what should be a minimum wage depending on the area where the employee received the salary.
I'm asking about minimum income earners. What is the policy of BIR with regard to minimum income earners?
Okay. For the minimum income earners...
marginal income earners.
Yeah, because I got confused.
I also got confused. Marginal income earners.
We refer to it as the marginal income earners. For the marginal income earners, as I said, based on the existing issuances, we've always asked them we recognize them as a marginal income earner. In fact, there are registered marginal income earners. Based on data 2013, we have around 115,053 registered marginal income earners. Based on the old issuances, under the VAT law and the percentage tax provision, the business taxes, there was a provision there which defined what is considered as engaged in trade or business. And then that's where the marginal income earners started, wherein as an exception or exclusion in the definition of marginal income earners, trade or business, there was a mention of, however, those earning gross receipts or sales not exceeding 100,000 in any 12-month period is not considered engaged in trade or business, but rather engaged in livelihood or subsistence. So they got exempted from value-added tax and percentage tax because it's not considered trade or business. However, there was no pronouncement that it cannot be done the same way for income taxation because there's no window to mention exemption in income taxation. That's why, as a policy, all those who declare themselves as marginal income earners, they still have to register. They got exemption from annual registration fee, but they are required to register their books. They are required to file income tax return because they are subject to income tax, but they're not subject to value-added tax and percentage tax.
Okay, so we're saying that currently, kahit napakaliit ng kinikita mo, you're still under the ambit of BIR. Tama, di ba? That's the current, yes. But in practice, does BIR actually go after your sari-sari stores, your farmers na within the threshold of the marginal income earner threshold? It doesn't, di ba? Because nasa threshold siya. If you're above the threshold, kunyari, nasa 150,000 yung gross sales mo for the year. And take note, if you're earning 150,000 gross sales, assuming a 15 to 20% margin, that's basically 30,000 pesos per annum. Okay, napakaliit po niyan. 30,000 pesos per annum. Hinahabol ba yan ng BIR o hindi?
To be honest, you only have a handful of manpower, so enforcement activities is randomly done, so hindi naman po 100% hinahabol. It's more on we target them on campaigns na voluntarily they comply with the law, pero zeroing in bawat isa sari-sari store. Sometimes
naman, diba?
Visibility, like we do zoning, nagdo door to door, just a reminder of what their obligations are.
Okay. So in short, there is some implementation. Obviously, I mean, even your numbers of 115,000 marginal income earners, there's already about 1 million sari-sari stores in the Philippines. So
maliit po.
That's grossly underreported, no? Okay. So in short, hindi naman talaga hinahabol ang mga marginal income earners ng BIR as a policy.
Hindi naman po. It's just that we just want to put order na kompleto yung database and priority on registration and then classifying them kung saan sila dapat. That's why Rinimay nag-issue in 2014 ng guidelines na kasama rin sa registration requirement even the small players.
Okay. So, let me make 2 points here, no? Since hindi naman talaga siya hinahabol, this bill, in effect, won't really make a dent in our collection, no? Hardly.
Sir, is between, do you collect between the 100 and 150? Kasi yung bill ni Senator Bam is 150.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, we're still gonna amend that actually. Yung 150
You wanna
is
go higher?
No, we want to peg it at the minimum wage. No.
Which is, what would that figure
Which moves actually, no,
be?
per...
Minimum wage is regional, eh. You have 200,
Yes.
210 to
Exactly.
466. So.
Exactly. So let's assume Metro Manila, Mr. Chairman, that's about 10 to 11,000 pesos per month. That's why there's a 150. But upon consultation, and we're going to file that bill later, no, to correct the... No, to basically peg it at minimum wage, no, and basically also look at equal protection of the law in the sense that you're already exempting a certain sector of the Philippines from paying taxes. You might as well extend that to those who aren't paid workers but actually are in trade or in business, no. So, Mr. Chairman, we'll be sending that very soon, no, to correct
I think these are ongoing
exactly.
concern, no?
But basically nga, so as I was saying, in terms of collection, this really won't make a dent, no? Because in principle, you don't really collect naman talaga from the MIEs. Or do you collect from the MIEs?
We should be collecting from the MIE's income taxes.
Not should, but do you? As you know, in 2013, for example, magkano yung nakolekta nyo from sari-sari stores, from farmers, from vendors, from all of the ones who are still considered a marginal income earner but above the 100,000 threshold, for example?
I don't have the data with me, sir, but it's something we can ask our sa data warehouse to extract so that we can give you the information. But as to whether or not this will create a dent in the collection, if we're talking about collection from the real marginal income earners, maybe that not much, but what we fear is the possible loophole it might create where the self-employed might intentionally declare themselves to be marginal income earner and just set and peg their income earnings at a certain level so that they would be enjoying exemption and not pay the appropriate taxes even if they've gone beyond the threshold amount.
But that's exactly my point rin, Assistant Commissioner Cabreros, no? Right now, hindi nyo naman talaga nakokolektahan yan, right? You're really not able to collect from this sector. There is that specter of possibly collecting from the sector, but that sector is currently left, rather on their own, no? Except for a few. Na may mga times siguro nagkakaroon ng drive or nagkakaroon ng, as you said, no, nagsa-spot check kayo and tatamaan a few, and that's probably what, maybe less than 5% of the whole universe of marginal income earners. No? So, ako, first of all, I think it's unfair to them na meron kang mga mahihirap na tinatarget for taxes na the rest naman hindi naman sila hinahabol ng BIR. No? So, one is really a matter of fairness, which is, if you're earning less than a minimum wage earner, I don't understand why dapat magbayad ka pa ng tax. No? Kasi that is already enshrined in our laws na merong benefit na ganoon for our minimum wage earners. And as Yusek Paul said, in principle, I think it's fine. Okay. Secondly, in terms of implementation, they really aren't, hindi naman talaga sila hinahabol talaga. No? I think the goal is still the big fish at the end of the day. No? Those that probably one company is worth hundreds of thousands of these marginal income earners anyway. So the question then becomes, what about the loophole or what about the administrative processes? No? Maybe you can suggest, Assistant Commissioner Cabreros, what would be the best way to go about it, no? For example, kung hahabulin ka ng BIR and then you can prove that you are a marginal income earner, then okay ka na dapat, di ba? Because in principle, they're already exempted, no? So we don't want to make it difficult for you also. That's why we're having this hearing, no? So we can work together. But you tell us how to make it happen. Hindi pwede yung mukhang mahirap, mukhang may loophole, therefore wag na lang. Kasi sayang naman the principle behind it, the opportunity to actually help our countrymen and remove that specter of fear. To be honest, and I see Moniz here from Go Negosyo, no, one of the reasons why a lot of these marginal income earners or our micro entrepreneurs are afraid to pay taxes is because habang mababa pa lang sila or habang kukunti pa lang kinikita nila, sometimes nahahabol sila or they hear stories na, sir, isipin nyo, less than 4,000 a month lang kinikita ko, hinahabol na kami ng munisipyo ng taxes namin. So they're already afraid to formalize, and they're actually afraid to make that jump to small business, no? Where if you're a small business, you will actually pay taxes. So in short, if we're able to give them that space, and they're able to grow into a small business situation, then I think they actually will redound to better collections for BIR at the end of the day. Kasi mas malalaki po yung base natin. But while they're still small, if we don't give them that protection or that leeway to be able to grow, nahihirapan na po sila na lumaki. So I'm happy that Yusek Paul himself said that in principle this is a good bill, but let's push it further. If there are issues in terms of implementation, how do we do it? Now, in the bill we put there that kung MIE ka, kung marginal income earner ka, exempted ka na from filing your taxes because at the end of the day, wala na naman silang books, diba? They also don't have books. I've never seen a palengke vendor with books na kaya nang i-audit ng SGB, no? I mean, you know what I mean, diba? Meron yan sa likod ng karton. I don't think that's considered a book. But you can track them actually, no? Because they have suppliers and they have receipts also from other institutions. And in fairness naman, kung lumalaki na sila, makikita mo rin naman physically eh. Kasi yung maliit nilang tindahan, magiging grocery na, instead of a bintana, magiging walk-in. And then you can check, no, if they're already earning more than what a minimum wage earner would be earning in their area. But at least, kung talagang maliit sila, if they're really a marginal income earner, maybe this law can give them that breathing room. Diba? Anyway, the idea of not going after these marginal income earners was already enshrined in one of your memos, diba? Nandiyan na naman yan eh. So we just want to make it law and make sure that at least sa Pilipinas, kung talagang maliit ka, bibigyan ka ng tulong para lumaki rather than papatawan ka kaagad ng taxes, no? And to be honest also, I think it's also unfair na we target paunti-unti itong mga maliliit, no? Considering na, they live in fear, no, of the tax person, no? And that's not the type of situation we want to be in, no? We want them to pay their taxes willingly once they get to a level where they're already a small business, no? So, could you give us comments, ma'am, on yung questions nyo on loopholes or yung concerns nyo on loopholes and administrative ways to go about it, no? Right now, kung meron kayong nahabol, tapos mali yung kanyang, for example, okay, naghabol kayo ng isang grupo, and then minimum wage, kunyari, naghabol kayo ng isang tao, at minimum wage earner pala siya, he just has to show his, diba, his pay slips, right?
Yes.
Okay. Kung naghabol kayo ng kumpanya, and they didn't file any taxes, they will have to show their books to you, right?
Yes.
Okay, so in the same sense, if we exempt all of these marginal income earners at merong mga, let's say may mga sumubok na, marginal income earner din kami, kung mahabol nyo sila, they will have to prove it to you, right?
Yes, and under the tax code, even the commissioner has an authority to prepare supposedly a income tax declaration or computation of what should have been the profit given the third-party source information that the BIR will be able to gather.
Okay, so in short, kung supermarket ka na, tapos nagpapanggap kang sari-sari store, malabo naman yun, di ba? Yes. That's not going to happen, right?
A safeguard nga for that. Sa Senator B and I were talking, what if an unscrupulous individual, like, puts up, he's already engaged in other business, and he just puts up mini corporations and sasabihin niya marginal lahat yun. Diba? Is there a safeguard against that kind of thing?
The difficulty is with reference to individuals. If an individual will put up several corporations, wala po kaming gaanong problema niyan because if an entity is registered as a corporation, it's a separate juridical entity and taxed differently. It's more an individual Because misnomer sometimes is, akala ng individual, itong negosyong to, ito lang i-declare ko, pero he can open as many businesses as he wants na naka-registered under his name as self-employed, pero the reporting should be consolidated of all those activities.
Daing kasi ng small businessmen, yung documentary requirements. Kasi you're going to pay such a small amount. So anong requirement nyo ngayon sa marginal income earners? Ha? Hindi, meron sila. Meron.
Right now,
Comply with all 4 or 5, di ba? There are 4 or 5, is that true?
yes,
As
they
of-
are under the compliance requirement, bale, though they are exempted from annual registration fee, they are required to register their books of accounts, which is a simple 2-column journal and a books of daily expenses and receipts. Yun yung simple books, the books. Iba yung mas malaki, mas complicated yung mga libro nila. Sa kanila is just a 2-column journal and receipts and disbursement books. And then they are required to have a receipt printed. And then they are required to file annual income tax return, although they are exempted from value-added tax or business taxes, value-added tax or business taxes.
So the cost of compliance with all of those requirements, baka mas okay na yung magbayad sila ng 500 annual registration fee, di ba? Ako, personally, listening to you and all those requirements, I would rather pay the 500. Kalimutan na natin yung mga, di ba?
Actually, Mr. Chairman,
That's the principle, di ba?
if I may interject, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, yes.
ma'am, sino yung 100,000 na marginal income earners na yun who are earning less than 100,000 but have the books and are able to comply with all those things? Sino ho yun?
Kaya nga, that's the point we're driving
Yeah.
at, Senator Bame.
Precisely
Ang
po.
hirap kasi if you're earning less than 100,000, malamang hirap na hirap ka na sa binebenta mo,
No,
di
that's
ba?
why I want to know
Oh.
what type of institutions these are.
No, precisely, sir. That's why the commissioner issued a issuance, a reminder, na though they are considered or registered as marginal income earner, meron silang ibang registration requirements kasi wala nga kami sa database na hanggang registration lang na they declare they are marginal income earners. And then after that, walang filing, walang mga libro, walang mga...
Siyempre. Siyempre po. I mean, siyempre, these are your palengke stall owners and your sari-sari stores and tricycle drivers. Of course, wala silang requirements. So yung 100,000 ho na yan, actually, they just said that they were, but did not comply with any of the other requirements.
Kaya lang sir, on our part, because we implement the tax code, part of the tax code din kasi is a requirement that the issuance of resibo is a requirement for those engaged sa negosyo, and the exemption na pwedeng hindi ka mag-issue ng resibo is 25 pesos.
The exemption,
Yung pwedeng hindi ka mag-issue ng resibo kung yung binibenta mo is less than 25 pesos.
Okay.
So on our side, we are tasked to implement. So we're marrying the registration requirement with the invoicing requirements, and the invoicing requirement part of the tax code says the threshold there is 25 pesos, which is an old provision already. Of the tax
actually, we should also increase that 25 pesos, not to be frank. But this will actually make your life so much easier kung itong bill na ito, because you're already exempting a group that's impossible to monitor and implement, and it still is part of your current mandate, di ba? So actually, this will make your life so much easier. Kasi kaagad-agad, lahat ng underground economy, binibigay natin sa kanila yung kanilang, we're giving them that space already. That will also help you focus on. Now, can you imagine how much resources will be freed up from going after all of these micro-entrepreneurs? Instead, you can free up those resources to focus on, the bigger fish, so to speak, no? So, I'm hoping that you would be very supportive of this bill and, give us the comments that we need to be able to refine this further.
Yes, sir. The biggest challenge there is just to monitor that they don't forever declare themselves intentionally as small or marginal income earners and not graduate as a small business entrepreneur.
Yeah, you're talking about those that are actually above the minimum wage na yung kinikita but hindi sila nagde-declare. But palagay ko kasi, if they'll do it with this, they're doing it now already, no? So meaning, your cost of going after them will probably be the same. I don't think it will increase if we pass this bill, because kung talagang nagtatago sila, talagang, they're really cheating on their taxes, in effect, it will only be a problem if hinabol nyo sila, then they claim this bill as their defense. But in that case, like all the cases that you come across, you're going to ask them to show their receipt, show their proof that indeed you're within the MIE. Tama, di ba?
Kaya nga po precisely, requires a registration requirement that they have books, they have receipt, because if ma-audit nga sila at mapuntahan ng BIR examiner, what will they present if they're not keeping books and they're not maintaining receipts and they're not keeping record of what their sales and purchases are?
Mr. Chairman, may interject some inputs which may be helpful to the discussion. Because individuals right now are, individuals engaged in business are entitled to a optional deduction of 40% based on gross sales. So, if you look at that, assuming we don't change the law and it's based on gross sales, that's you're taxing the 60%, and so the tax there is 20% of the gross. So the minimum wage earner now, let's say it's as much as 130,000 per year, and so the gross per year is about 650,000. If you gross it up, and that is the tax. So if you're looking at minimum requirements, and the individual is choosing to claim the optional standard deduction, all the individual needs to substantiate is the sales. So that's the walang accounting ng cost.
So what you're saying is, if you can prove that your sales was this amount and less, then you can claim that you are part of the marginal. If you're able to pass this, then you can claim that you're within the ambit of the marginal income earner exemption. That's what you're saying, di ba?
Yes,
so hindi siya books, no? It's basically your receipts.
Yes.
And in fairness naman, if we're, again, kung sari-sari store, iba sa palengke, no? Kasi sa palengke, mas informal. But kung sari-sari store ka, you'll have your receipts from Pure Gold, you'll have your receipts from your distributors. Kasi kailangan din nila yan, eh, di ba? Hopefully, they keep it. And again, hindi nyo naman hahabulin yung mukhang bintana. Ang hahabulin nyo yung mukha ng grocery. You can even count yung dami ng kanilang tinda. Di ba? You can even count. Okay, medyo 250,000 na tong equivalent ng tinda mo. Siguro naman, nabebenta mo yan at this rate, di ba? So, my point lang, ma'am, is in terms of, I don't think it's right to say na dadami yung mga magtatago, di ba, with this bill. Hindi siya dadami. They will just have something else that they might lean on. But again, I think in your case, it would be easy to prove or easy to show na nagtatago sila. You've done it naman already in the past, no? So, maybe in that sense, it's not a loophole, but it's an added thing that you might need to prove, no, or you might need to show when going after some of these enterprises, no. Yes, you want?
Yes, Senator, just in support of your bill, in Thailand, for instance, there are graduated rates for individuals, and the 150,000 baht is exempt from income tax. I believe, Senator, that your proposed bill should go hand in hand with if we're also reviewing the income tax rates, the graduation of the rates. Like for instance, even in Thailand, even for corporate income taxes, those with income of 1 million baht up will be subject to 20%, and then it goes into just 3 graduations, and then a certain part is exempt. So, and the other reason, Senator, that I like the bill is that it removes the registration requirements associated with, for instance, availing of the barangay micro-business enterprise, which was never advertised, never supported by the local governments, and hardly anyone availed of it. I'm also supportive because you're right, they don't pay anyway, but it removes the stress. They don't pay, but they're stressed about, the BIR is doing this to everybody, what if they close our shop? So at least they can concentrate on growing their business. They can feel secure that they can go about their business without anybody grabbing their inventory of stocks because they're not compliant with tax.
Thank you. And again, no, in a less stressed out environment, hopefully they can grow their business. And when they grow, ayan na ma'am, pwede na po kayong kumatok sa kanilang mga pinto kapag sufficient na yung kanilang kinikita. No? I think that's it naman. Mon? Chairman, that's okay. Come on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Basically, we agree on supporting the bills and the resolutions. But before I give my comments po, yung sinasabing nagtatago at yung maliliit would try to prove themselves as small. Actually, we believe in the field of entrepreneurship, medyo exception po yon rather than the rule. Dahil lahat ng lumalaki, talagang would be proud to say na lumalaki sila. At saka, sabi nga ni Senator Bam, hindi mo maitatago kung malaki na yung negosyo mo. Kahit napaka-tedious mag-register ng napakaraming sole proprietorship at paano mo manage yun, may isa at isang lalaki doon. And yung lumaki na yon will be already be monitored and will be very, very obvious. So I guess it is really more of an exception rather than the rule. So going to the comments, definitely the supporting the bill is very the bills is very essential kasi po it is definitely a pro-poor maliit na negosyante. Ang kailangan po kasi talaga ng maliit na negosyante ay turuan, hindi buwisan. No, nurture rather than torture. Sabi nga namin. Kasi ang kailangan talaga nila, kaya nga po, I guess all the senators were in full support of the Go Negosyo Bill. Kasi talagang nandun po talaga para lumaki yung negosyante. Ay nandun yung mentorship, yung money, capital access, and the market linkage na nakasama dun po sa Go Negosyo Act na bagong napirmahan. Kaya po, napaka-importante po nyo para talagang lumaki yung mga negosyo. At pag malaki na, andyan naman matataksan na rin sila. And we have to create this kind of atmosphere na hindi yung nagtataguan. Talagang we nurture breeding ground as in BREED. Talagang at that level, we let them grow and find their niche. And lumaki sila at pag malaki, doon na matataksan. On the equality of taxation, we would propose, we saw the number, 180,000. Kung titingnan po natin, talagang, and we look at 180,000, not as sales revenue, but income. So if we are to project po the equivalent sales revenue, we probably will be looking at a level of about, sa 10% na lang po na income, is 1.8 million a year revenue. And 1.8 million is parang malapit na siya dun sa definition natin ng micro business in the BAMBI law, na 3 million and below would be micro enterprise. And we were just discussing earlier with my seatmate na sa BAMBI law, 3 million and below, anyway, may 3 years, parang tax exemption. Beyond that, you have to be paying already. So, if you look at that, parang the 3 million and below, yung mga malapit na sa 3 million, dapat naman after 3 years, graduate ka na, lumaki na yung negosyo mo, and therefore you should be taxed already properly. But below that, at the level of mga 2 million, you are still within that level na probably you're still within the 3 million a year sales. So, if we peg it at, and this is where our proposals is coming in already, na a 2 million a year sales revenue might be a good benchmark as the minimum na below which can be exempted. Kasi the 2 million is translated to like less than 200,000 sales per month. So mga 150,000 sabihin na natin, or 160,000 sales per month. Sa 10%, that's only 16,000 a month income. So parang malapit na siya dun sa minimum wage na pinapantay natin if we are to make the law parang consistent with the minimum wage exemption.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I may clarify, actually,
Go ahead.
there's we're filing another bill today, to correct our bill, because there's confusion in terms of the income cap and the gross sales, What we meant was income. Okay. However, now, let's say Metro Manila. Ang Metro Manila minimum wage is about 10 to 11,000. No? So let's say it's about 11,000. We're looking at about 132,000 pesos per month in income. No? If you're a tindahan, usually you're at 15 to 20% ang margin mo. So let's say you're at 20%, so times 5, no? So 132 times 5 is about 650. Okay. So that was actually the memo that, or the letter that I sent. The 100,000 as a gross sales cap is too small. Something more realistic would be in the 500 to 600,000 range. No? But again, in the interest of not being pegged to this number 25 years from now, and magiging moot na naman yung batas na ito 25 years from now because of inflation, we already have a mechanism for adjusting minimum wage. And that's done by the minimum wage boards na may indexing na yon. So what we propose is that per area, naka-base na lang yun dun sa minimum wage of the area. Again, we're also looking at the equal protection of the law here, no? So, if, for example, the minimum wage in a particular area is 9,000 pesos, we can agree with BIR or NDTI on the margin that we will use. I would suggest anywhere from 15 to 20% margin, because that's usually the margin of a number of the micro entrepreneurs, no? Si Mon says it's lower, but in my experience, it's about 15 to 20%. But if you use that...
Successful yung mga kausap mo.
Hindi, because ano naman syempre the smaller you go, the larger your margin. The bigger your business, usually mas lumilit yung margins mo. But anyway, if we're using 15%, so you just use the 15%, that one we can peg into the law already, and use it as a multiplier, no? And that becomes your maximum gross sales annually, because that presupposes that you're earning at the same level of the minimum wage earner. So what we put there na 150,000 was actually pegged at 150,000 peso income cap, not gross receipts, no? There's my conflicting, I'm sorry for that, Mr. Chairman, but there's a conflicting part there. It refers to gross receipts on one paragraph and refers to an income cap on the second paragraph, no? But I think the better way to go is just to peg it at the same level as minimum wage. And thereby, we're also fulfilling the requirement of the Constitution, which is equal protection of the law, that all of our citizens in a particular class should receive the same benefits. No? So we'll file that later, and we can debate later on the margins and the totals, but that I think would be the wisest way to go, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair?
Senator Binay, yes.
I think ang concern ko lang is Assistant Commissioner Cabreros, di ba this revenue memo, ini-implement yun na hutok, am I correct? So, ibig sabihin ho niyan, nangongolekta na kayo, pwede nyo nang habulin if they go beyond the 100,000. Right. And then, katulad nga ho ng sinabi nyo na yung amount, you came up with the amount of 100,000 nung 1990, kasi ito ho yung 1994, di ba? Am I correct? So, bakit hindi na lang ho kayo kumuha ng figure that is more apt with the times? Why not put it na lang at 150 or at 180?
Walang indexation yung revenue regulation. There's no indexation.
In the first place, sir, when we discovered itong 2014 that 100,000 nung pinahanap ni Commissioner what was the basis, hindi namin nakitaan ng basis in the law yung 100,000. So, updating the amount would be more further without legal basis if we change the amount. So, kinary lang yung 100,000.
Well, it's without legal basis, but you have a basis in equity. So, like basically, 1994 figure of 100,000 is at least 230,000 now in 2014, based on our rough computations.
With the revenue memo.
The revenue memo was just a reminder as an offshoot of the registration requirement. Kaya nabanggit ulit yung topic about marginal income earners of 100,000 because the memo is clarificatory to a revenue regulation 7-2012, which is about primary and secondary primary registration requirement of all taxpayers, which defined sino-sino yung mga iba't ibang klaseng taxpayers, and included po doon is the marginal income earners.
Di ba parang katulad nga paulit-ulit na sinasabi ni Senator Bam, na this sector, ano naman talaga to it won't make a dent with your revenue collection, di ba? So, hindi ho ba posible na since there's already a pending bill, hindi ho ba pwede on the part of BIR na kumbaga may moratorium muna tayo when it comes to this income, yung itong 100,000?
Actually, what the objective of the primary registration regulation is a database buildup of all taxpayer, whether paying or not paying taxes. So the objective there is mailagay sila sa taxpayers net, everyone, whether earning income or not, paying taxes or not, is given tax identification number. And it seemed now there are certain universe of individuals or corporation na nawawala sa database. So that's why we needed to issue a registration compliance reminder at dinefine yung iba't ibang klaseng taxpayers that needs to be registered.
Alam mo, maganda yung, I support that goal of getting information on everybody. Kasi the BIR has a very small pool of reliable, let's call them reliable taxpayers. Ang tendency is yun ang nabubugbog di ba? Kasi yun ang nagbabayad So yun talagang pagkakulang ang collection. Dito natin, hanapin. Dito sa mga, may record kasi tayo dito wala tayong record so hindi natin mahabol yun.
Yes.
So I support the BIR in that sense. But we must have a lighter hand, I think. Kasi other countries are also doing that. The US does that, the Singapore does that. But sa kanila, it's so easy to comply. They make it easy to comply. So, ang incentive ng taxpayer is ko-comply ako kasi madali Diba? Between compliance and non-compliance. Doon ka sa compliance. Kasi unang-una, legal ka na, madali pang gawin. In Singapore, you can incorporate a single-person corporation, one day, one person. Hindi ba natin pwedeng gawin yan dito? Senator Bam, I was in the National Day of Singapore yesterday, and the businessmen were telling me, you can incorporate, it used to be one person, one incorporator, and one person, one owner, single proprietorship, and one director. Ginawa nilang single person lang. You can incorporate in one day. So, yun. So, once you incorporate, you're in the loop already. So, yung mga fishbowl vendors sa Singapore, yung mga street vendor, they are part of the formal network. Because Singapore made it, the government made it easy for them to comply. Can we not devise a way? Kasi, sa description nyo palang, ang bigat na niyan Hindi ho ba pwedeng, yung cost of compliance will exceed the income that the government will earn. So definitely, you have to align the incentives Kailangan ma-incentivize yung taxpayer. Gusto kong mag-comply. Gusto kong maging legal kasi madali siya. Dapat ganun tayo. Yun ang prinsipyo.
Mr. Chair, siguro I'm just curious, ilang araw yung kailangan nilang ubusin to comply with all these requirements?
Could you let us know? Ano yung requirements? Let's study. Can you give us the list of that requirements? Kasi yung resibo pa lang may cost yan Nabanggit nyo sa atin last time di ba?
Sir, aside from the cost, yung time na pabalik-balik sila sa BIR,
pupunta pa ng printer.
Yung mga ganung...
Can we not automate everything? Para ang cost mo lang, mag 1 hour ka sa internet cafe. Naka-online na ako. Nasa record na ako ng BIR, ng SEC. By the way, Senator Bam, I filed an amendment to the corporation code to have single-person corporations. I hope we can that. I think it links up to this and your efforts with all the micro entrepreneurs.
Sige sir, I'm with legal. I'll consult.
But nakita niyo yung point namin.
Yes.
Na you don't make it easy di ba? But we support your goal of we were one with the BIR in widening the tax base Kasi yun ang sabi ng World Bank recently. The Philippines has to widen its tax base. Kasi kawawa yung mga nagbabayad You don't encourage compliance with the law. You must encourage compliance with the law, di ba? Kasi you're encouraging people to go outside, to be a lawbreaker Kasi pinapahirapan nyo sila. You must make it easy for people to comply with the law.
I'll get the registration requirements from our operations group. And the thrust of the BIR as to the database build-up, it's more on expanding, kasi nagiging misnomer yung taxpayer database. So ang thinking ng taxpayer is kasi magbabayad kami. It's more on expanding the registration information database.
Taxpayer information na lang. Something like that.
Do you have a tie-up with DTI? Kasi di ba usually pag single prop ka, you register your business. Do you share information?
I have to ask the office kasi sa legal group
Magkagalit
ko ako.
Dahil sa FI at saka team
Siguro I don't know, ma'am, if you can answer it. Do you share information? I mean, does BIR ask data from yung sa small business corporation or from DTI? Kung sino yung mga nakarehistro sa kanila?
But the detail information can be accessed by the BIR. I don't think we sit down together to discuss these things at the moment.
Mr. Chairman? Yeah, just to maybe so we can move this forward, no? Okay, so we have the bill. We have a number of versions here. Has BIR and DOF provided position papers already on the bills formally? Not yet. This is the first time, no?
I think the NTRC, Senator Aquino, has want to give them They've given their written position, no? Senator Recto's bill.
Yeah, but the original one, no? We'll, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
But anyway, maybe you can. You want them to explain right now, or you want
No.
them to wait for the?
No, we can, we'll file that today. So the committee, it will be referred to the committee maybe by today or tomorrow as well, Mr. Chairman. If you can instruct your committee to send that to the resource speakers. We're really hoping to pass this as soon as possible because honestly, this is a tax measure which, number one, does not really affect our collections. Number two, will ease the burden of at least 40 million Filipinos in my estimation. And it makes it rather fair already, no? So, I'm hoping that we can move this forward, unlike our other bills, Mr. Chairman, and, I share your pain here that, we tend to hear the same bills in the Ways and Means Committee, paulit-ulit po siya. I'm hoping we can move this already, and, we've already reached out to our congressional counterparts also to possibly look into the MIE bill, and this could be another landmark bill of this administration, which is pro-poor and pro-business at the same time. So hopefully we can see this already, Mr. Chairman.
Yusek, please.
Mr. Chairman, having said that, in principle, the treatment of the minimum wage earners and the marginal income earners should be the same. Now, with kung gagawin nating income, you're coming up with a cost, it becomes mas malasama, masalimuot ba yan? Then maybe, Mr. Chairman, if we're tinkering with parts of the tax system, maybe it's high time to go to do a CTRP phase 2 because maraming gaps yan, maraming loopholes. Might as well fix the
I
whole
agree.
thing.
Mr. Chairman, I agree completely, no? And we definitely need a landmark reform tax bill, no? Because it's, again, putting on my Committee on Trade hat, it's really so difficult already to comply. But Mr. Chairman, I hope this landmark bill, which will probably take a year or two of your time, won't deter us from doing this two-page bill which will ease the burden of a lot of our countrymen.
Kung in-index lang natin yung past laws natin, we'd be in a better place if we indexed everything, di ba? Like the income tax, yung 1997, 500,000. If we indexed it, then the 500,000 could buy administrative or executive fee at our order na naging 1 million or 2 million na siya ngayon, depending on how we set the indexation. But for some reason, we didn't index it. No? It's the same with the revenue regulation, which has dubious legal origins to begin with, no? According to you. So, kung in-index lang natin yon, di ba? We were able to humanize it, di ba? Na nakakasabay tayo sa panahon. So, yeah, sa DTI, you raised your hand.
I'd just like to share that there's actually a self-correction mechanism between the informal and the formal. As long as you stay informal, you don't have your mayor's permit, you are not able to issue official receipts. That's parang yun na yung hindrance for growth. So if my understanding of the marginal income earners bill to be passed into law is informal sila, unregistered sila, I think there's a mechanism talaga stopping them from growing. So okay lang, I'm supportive of the law because, for example, you cannot access competitively priced loans from the banks because you're unregistered, you don't have the papers. And you cannot really prepare your financial reporting if you don't have these licenses, for example. So parang naman po meron siyang self-correction mechanism. So there's that will address the concern of the BIR.
Could you explain that self-correct? How does that operate? Can you explain how it is a self-correcting mechanism?
If you don't have your licenses, you cannot sell to the supermarkets. You cannot
expand, you mean?
You cannot expand.
Doon ka na lang sa maliit.
Yes, your sales.
Okay,
in
you cannot
fact,
expand.
I believe, sir, na sabi ni Mon kanina, to achieve the minimum wage, your sales should be between 750,000 to 1.5 million if your margin, no? You won't be able to achieve that level of sales if you don't have your licenses.
Sure.
Yes,
I'm sure maraming walang lisensya na nakaka-achieve ng ganong sales.
Like, for example, sa supermarkets, I also did I did my small bake shop. You cannot
okay.
sell if you don't have BFAD.
I see. Okay.
Opo, if you do not have your official receipts, kasi yung VAT may input, output
But what
VAT
about
ganon.
what about sa BIR? What if we just require them to give their license and their mayor's permit and then charge them a flat fee para madali?
One time.
Oh, yung ARF, i-apply na lang natin yun, 500. At least may kita pang gobyerno, di ba? Walang cost of administration, di ba? Would you at least consider that?
I think as a
Hindi, kasi then it fulfills your goal of widening your network of information, your tax base, di ba? And then it saves you the problem of running after these guys for a minuscule amount, di ba? Just say if your gross sales are a certain amount, o bayad ka na ng 500, ganun. Di ba pwede yun? 500 is a hypothetical amount, no? We can come up with something, but di ba? In lieu of all taxes, in lieu of all receipts and whatever. No, maybe you can still keep your receipts if you earn. We'll have a graduated level. If you're at a certain level, then it makes economic sense to keep receipts. But at a certain low level, it does not make sense, di ba? Who can we consult to? What are the optimal levels for that? Will you be able to give us the cost of this compliance with these bureaucratic requirements? Oh.
Siguro, Mr. Chair, let us cite an example. For example, they are earning 150,000, which is hindi siya kasama dun sa exemption. How much will that person pay? Tax.
They'll be subject to the OSD, di ba?
Mr. Chairman, ano pa yan? 150,000 gross? Or
Ano ba yan? May sweldo pa yan.
Gross.
May sweldo pa yan, malamang, di ba?
If it's gross, Mr. Chairman, assuming 15%, sige, sabihin ng 20, gusto nyo mababa, no? 10% margin, di 15,000 per annum yung kinita niya. So, 15,000 pesos per annum yung kanyang take
What's
home.
the tax for that, for 15,000?
Sa totoo lang,
For 10,000, 5%. Pero there's allowable deduction pa na personal
na
exemption.
50, di ba?
50,000. Tapos kung may children hanggang 4.
So, technically, Mr. Chairman, kailangan niya mag-file, zero rin ang kanyang ibabayad, di ba? So, I think but BRR sees the wisdom in having them file, right, no? For the information. But, again, ma'am, kung mag-file ka, there's cost kasi to that, eh. So, sipa, 15,000 lang kinita mo, pupunta ka sa BIR, kukuha ka ng form, hingi ka ng tulong.
Siguro yan pwede dapat gawin nating online para wala nang gastos kasi yung mga yan, kung 15,000, pupunta pa sila sa how widespread is the...
Tsaka, Mr. Chair, hindi ba kailangan din ng signature yun ng CPA?
Malamang, wala.
Hindi na. Wala na
How widespread is the BIR network in terms of payment? Any bank ba?
Any bank. Yeah.
So how many banks are accredited to accept?
No, there are accredited agent banks.
I think we asked you that before, eh. Oo. Depende kung bawat bayan may bangko, di maganda, diba? Pero
I have to get back to you, sir, with the
with the
number of the
accredited-
authorized, registered banks.
we really have to look into this issue of compliance and simplicity of administration, eh.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, because of your very interesting point about simplicity, I think it's also high time maybe to enforce it through legislation to have a one-stop action unit that in one hit you register with the BIR, and with the BIR one hit you registered with TIN, withholding tax, and whatever, and then you registered also with the local government, registered with DTI, registered with the SSS, one hit. And I think if we have that kind of an agency, the Philippines ranking from 130 in the difficulty in doing business will shoot up, because that's really the one thing
Yun yung
lacking.
konsepto ni Senator Bam dun sa Go Negosyo Center. To have a one-stop shop talaga. Oh. But siyempre, kakapasa lang ng batas. So as any law, in 7,000 islands, it will take some time to implement, no? So let's really work on this simplicity. Marami tayong matutulungan dito, eh.
And update lang, sir, correction lang. For those areas na walang designated, authorized, accredited banks, we do have revenue doctors na that goes around and most normally
Mas
nasa
nakakatakot yun sa totoo lang eh. Mas nakakatakot, mas iiwasan ng tao yun. Malamang kung tumitimbre sa kanya, hindi niya sasagutin yun. Kasi that's why you depersonalize it. You take away corruption and you facilitate the yung friction ba, di ba? So so, can we work on the online I'm serious. We're serious here, I think. Yung online payment, or it's not even payment kasi there's nothing to it's online compliance lang. Diba?
Mr. Chairman, may I go back to your previous point?
Please.
Ma'am, you failed to, or you said, Paul, you failed to comment on the suggestion of the chairman na one flat fee for a certain range. Is that allowable in our law? Or is your hesitation to answer because it's not within our laws right now?
Parang hindi, you will have to have, because I think the law now, correct me if I'm wrong, Biaya, whether you're big or you're small, it's the same reporting requirements.
Yes.
So we need to change. Is that something within the power of BIR to change the reporting requirements for smaller businesses? It's not. It's not, no. So we need a law to be able to change that, no. I think that's why they hesitated to answer, Mr. Chairman, because kailangan ng batas.
Nothing preventing them.
Yes, kailangan ng batas.
So tell us how can we make it simpler? Kasi hindi tayo pwede sa one size fits all di ba? It's clear already how our society is developing di ba? Kayang-kaya ng mga malalaki, whether it's customs, they can comply with all the requirements of customs kahit nakapila yung cargo nila dyan. Sige, pahaba ng PC, kayang-kaya nila, di ba? Pero yung mga malilitang ang napapasama dyan So, ganun din. Dapat mas madali yung compliance requirements nila.
I was just told, andito din po yung aming officer for the IT. Live naman po sa BIR website yung online registration for self-employed, and the e-forms, e-BIR forms are also available.
Can we we'll set up a Wi-Fi here and then we'll try to access it at the next meeting. Huh?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
We'll see. No, because I think we should really sorry.
Go ahead.
1 second. We should really see how it works in practice, di ba? Baka parang Obama Healthcare yan na nag-collapse yung website pagka di ba? We have to see how it works talaga. So can we ask that we work on this at the next hearing?
Sir,
Senator Bam, sorry, I
in
was
fact, the Assistant Commissioner for the IT Systems Operations is here with us. We can have a demo on the online registration. Okay.
Sige, next week. Thank you.
Sir.
Senator Bam.
Well, siguro since we're on this topic and medyo nag-off topic na rin tayo, just wanted to raise this na rin, no. In the drive of BIR to increase its registration, you really need to think about what's in it for them, no. Kasi at the end of the day, natatakot yung mga tao mag-register, di ba? And maybe this is because the public face of BIR is one which is punitive, no. So, it's counterproductive. You cannot try to increase your number of registrants if the public face is one na siguro yung may isip mo magtayo ka na lang, number one, di ba? I mean, to be very frank, di ba? So
gusto na nila yung computer ang tinitingnan nila.
Maybe
hindi yung public.
But secondly also is what benefits do they get from registering? Now, our friend from SB Corp put it very simply, no? You cannot move up in the world kung hindi ka formal institution. So that's something, diba? That's something I think that is inevitable for everyone who wants to grow. But for those who are still small, or those who are in the process of growing, there needs to be some incentive. Hindi lang punitive yung pag-register. Kasi I think we all agree na we want to increase the tax base. Maybe yung suggestion ni Senator Angara na, if you register, you see us once a year if you're this size, tapos na. That actually might and free ka na, okay ka na, hindi ka na namin guguluhin. That actually might be something worthwhile to look into, 'di ba? Kunyari, if I pay my 50 pesos or 100 pesos, I'm registered, but then that's my if ever habulin ako ng munisipyo, ng BIR, ng local o yung roving collectors natin, I can show them I'm registered, so okay na ako. Something like that, 'di ba? But there has to be something, no? We can't just expect people to register at the same time. Kumbaga it doesn't make any sense. It's counterproductive, no? So, I think right now, maybe we can start with this bill. If we pass this together and we have the full support of BIR, and by the way, I'm hoping that wala pa akong hearing na puntahan aside from the fiscal incentive that BIR is supporting. Are there other bills that the BIR supported, Mr. Chairman, aside from the fiscal incentive bill?
Bills that don't affect the revenue collection.
Okay, well, this doesn't actually, technically, konting-konti lang. So maybe we can work on something together. Show this different face of BIR and say na, itong MI bill na to, this is something that we can do together for the development of the country. That might actually help you with your drive to increase the tax base.
We'll formally request na rin yung revenue impact of the measures, no? Just as you do for all the other tax bills, no? Anyone who's not been consulted yet on this marginal income, I know there's a lot of other resource persons, where we apologize, no, na napatagal yung discussion. Mr. Gaite, President of Courage.
Maraming salamat po. Pwede hong pahintulutan kaming basahin yung 2-page position paper ng Courage.
Please go ahead.
Salamat po. Dear Honorable Senators, we highly appreciate the opportunity to allow us to present our position regarding Senate Bills 716, 1942, and 2149. It is very timely that the Senate is reviewing with the end view of amending certain provisions of Republic Act 8424 or the NIRC of 1987. While many workers, both in the private and public sectors, are reeling from the increasing prices of basic goods and services, salaries or wages, on the other hand, have been decreasing in relation to purchasing or real value of the peso. However, tax rates have not conformed to current realities. We fully support said bills that will decrease the taxes on wage earners by extending the range subject to a lower tax rate and or decreasing the actual percentages of said taxes. This will result to an increase in the meager take-home pay of workers whose pay is not even enough to take them home. Current salary levels of government employees is a far cry from the living wage mentioned in Article 13, Section 3 of the Philippine Constitution. The estimated daily living wage is currently pegged at 1,077 pesos daily for a family of 5 to 6 persons, according to Ibon's latest 214 mid-year economic and political briefing. Translated monthly, this would amount to 32,310 pesos per month. If compared with the amount of 9,000 pesos, this is the minimum wage of government workers as of date. This is salary grade 1. It is not even 1/3 of the living wage. And this is only for employees in the national government units, government-owned and controlled corporations. If we take into account employees in a 6th-class local government unit or municipality, they may only receive 65% of the salaries of their NGA's counterparts, or 5,850 pesos per month for salary grade 1, which we believe is already a violation of the concept of equal pay for equal work. And these insufficient salaries will most likely be taxed. We view that such taxation is oppressive and regressive. Wage earners, according to recent studies, and I think we have representatives from the National Tax Research Institute, comprise 85% of the total tax base of the country, and 62% of that are from the public sector employees. Many of the said wage earners have incomes which do not meet the definition of a living wage. We find it therefore criminal that government has to exact its pound of flesh from lowly wage earners when on one hand, many foreign and local corporations and others are given tax incentives, are able to evade paying the correct taxes, and are able to evade paying the correct taxes. It is necessary to repeat the progressive tax tenet and the concept of social justice, that those who earn more should pay more and not the other way around. Therefore, the bills with the lightest tax burden would obviously benefit a larger section of the working class. Regular mandatory adjustments, as presented by Senator Bam, based on inflation or consumer price index, will also place taxes in a more realistic level. We would also like to be clarified on the matter on the exemption of minimum wage earners, or MWEs, from income tax under Republic Act 9504, amending said NIRC code. As we understand, the proposed amendments will be applied only after exempting first the MWEs, then those exempted will benefit from the proposed tax schedule. We would like our good senators to review the current implementation of the tax exemption for MWEs in the public sector, Republic Act 9504 defines MWEs as, quote, a worker in the private sector paid the statutory minimum wage or an employee in the public sector with compensation income of not more than the statutory minimum wage in the non-agricultural sector where he or she is assigned. Such a policy pegging the statutory minimum wage in the non-agricultural sector where he or she is assigned has caused only to benefit a small section of workers in the public sector, not due to their wage levels, but due to their place of assignment, where the statutory wage levels are much higher. Said policy has only benefited a few employees in the National Capital Region and Region 4A, and none for other regions for employees in the national government agencies and GOCCs. Only a few employees in the LGUs will probably benefit due to the lower salaries caused by their categorization. We have also presented a table showing how we have computed the minimum wage earners and who will be exempted based on their salary grade levels. We propose that the RA 9504 be also further amended to include provisions that such that those workers receiving salaries below the living wage should also not be taxed at all. In addition, although we were unable to attend the Senate Ways and Means Committee hearing on raising the 30,000 exclusion ceiling on fringe benefits based on the NIRC, we would like to put on record that we support this proposal, considering that the last time this was adjusted was 20 years ago, since Republic Act 7833 was passed into law. Finally, we also appeal to our good senators to immediately address the pressing demand of employees for a salary increase to bring salaries nearer to the living wage. We are calling for an increase in the minimum pay of government workers by 6,000 pesos a month at the soonest possible time and not 2 years from now. Thank you, Your Honors. Maraming salamat po.
Salamat, Mr. Gaite. What is Courage's, first of all, we'd like to recognize the former chairperson of this committee, the Senate's resident tax expert, the Senate President Pro Tempore, and also he has such a long resume that he's also the author of many of the bills we're discussing today, Senator Ralph Recto. Sir, thank you for coming. Mr. Gaite, ano ho yung definition nyo ng living wage? Or what is sa tingin nyo, ano po yung tamang bayad para makabuhay po ang isang manggagawa?
Dun sa define na family living wage, it must meet all basic necessities, including health, education, housing, clothing, and other basic needs. Unfortunately, what we are hearing from the government is a statistic indicating the poverty threshold level. Hinalungkag ko yung Constitution ng Pilipinas, walang binabanggit tungkol sa poverty threshold level. Ang pinag-uusapan po sa ay living wage, nakabubuhay na sahod. Hindi ko alam bakit ipepeg ang manggagawa sa poverty level. So dapat ipeg siya sa living wage. Kaya po doon sa huling figure na nilabas po ng Ibon, this was adjusted. Unfortunately, even the government has no updated figure of what is a living wage. Before, during Marcos's time, I believe there was an amount, and I think Ibon has just been updating the amount, and the current level is about 1,077 pesos daily for a family of about 5 to 6 persons, which is the average Filipino family size.
1,000 daily?
1,077 for a family.
So, that would be, the living wage would be 365,000 a year. Tama ho ba yun? Under that computation?
32,310 pesos a month. So times 12,
times
roughly
almost 400,000. Ang current figure na lumalabas sa mga research namin is that given by PSA, to stay above the poverty line, you must be able to pay for expenses of 96,000 a year. So sa tingin niyo ho, masyado nang mababa yung yun ang basic and non-basic needs.
Opo. Siguro ang best proof of the pudding is in the eating. Ibig sabihin po, subukan po yung ating kagalang-galang na mga senador, let's try to survive on that amount. And if you can survive on the amount, then we will have no qualms. We will agree that's a poverty incidence level. But if all of us here cannot survive on such an amount, then we should adjust it. The soonest, the better.
Well, definitely we support that. I was a supporter of SSL 3. I'm also a supporter of SSL 4. Just to place that on the record. So who else has? Sino pang hindi pa po na? Si Dr. Lamberte. Would you like to say anything, sir?
Thank you, and thank you for inviting us. Just, I have a lot of comments on the others, but I think from what I heard is that the government will have a revised bill, so I'd rather wait for that bill on fiscal incentives. Now on this exemption of marginalized income earners, I agree with the principle and direction you are taking. In fact, one of my comments was that there's a difference between gross and net income, and that across the country the so-called purchasing power of the peso differs. So in other words, you have to key that to the regional minimum wage. Now let me comment on indexation, because that has been mentioned several times. I would just like to caution the good senators and the body that there is a good side and bad side of indexation. While I support the suggestion to periodically review numbers like the minimum wage and so on, I think indexing them to CPI might be at the end would be disadvantageous to the economy. We have to remember that we're competing with other countries. So there are times in which inflation is called for to make some adjustments in the economy. I cannot discuss this in greater detail because sometimes inflation is a mechanism to adjust exceeding increases in the demand side. So I would like to caution that. So in the bills that you are thinking of, to summarize, I agree with periodic adjustment, but not with automatic indexation. And Latin American countries that used to follow indexation ended up with an economy that collapsed because they could not, their hands are tied. So I think our economic managers should be given some leeway on that. So I guess that's my comment on that issue.
Thank you, Dr. Senator Rector. I think you wanted to say something.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a very brief clarification on that statement, Dr. Lamberte. When you say indexation, are you referring to indexing the reduction of taxes or indexing minimum wage increases? There's a difference between the two.
Okay. Now, since the discussion last few minutes was that to align the exemption to the minimum wage. So if you index the minimum wage, so this one, the exemption is also indexed. No. So I think our good secretary will have a problem because we also want our tax system to be elastic. No. So there are some automatic stabilizer in the economy with the tax system that we have. So with the indexation, you do away with that.
Again, just to clarify, Dr. Lamberte, there are two schools of thought here. One is in our proposed measure as well. The last time we adjusted income taxes, if I'm not mistaken, was 20 years ago, in 1994, and it's 2014. Okay? One said it is 1997, but I don't think we adjusted it upward in 1997. It is the same as 1994. So that's 20 years ago. We have not indexed it, and there will be a point in time, maybe in 2017, wherein the tax rate will be one single rate, roughly at 32%. And that's why we're endeavoring to adjust the tax rates because of what you call the bracket creep. Now, I understand your point with regard to indexing minimum wage, I suppose. You probably need the flexibility. It is hard to index minimum wages. But I think indexing every 3 years, certain exemptions in favor of the taxpayer is good for the economy.
I
So,
said,
I think we should separate between
yeah,
the two.
as I said, I have no disagreement with periodic adjustments.
Yes.
No, I just have disagreement with the universal suggestion to index.
Yes.
As I mentioned to you,
Yes.
if you key the exemption to the wage, the minimum wage, and the minimum wage is indexed. No?
Yes, I understand your point.
So you also have problems with tax elasticity.
Yes.
So you reduce the capacity of the tax system to generate more revenues
Yes.
from that. So that's what I'm saying. So it's unfortunate that the tax rates we have for different income brackets were not adjusted. I would say that that should be adjusted on a regular basis, no?
Yes.
Not exceeding 3 years.
Yes.
That should be reviewed.
Yes.
no?
And finally, to be very brief about it, Dr. Lamberte, no? There are proposals in this committee, at least 3 of them. No? One is filed by myself, one is filed by Senator Aquino, and one is filed as well by Senator Angara, the chairman of the committee. No? And both have similar purposes. No? Basically, to give a tax break, by and large, to the middle class. And at the same time, knowing that the working class or the taxpayer will have more money to spend later on now that you have a VAT roughly at 12% as well. No? But having said all of that, no, do you think it is high time, Dr. Lamberte, that we adjust already the tax brackets?
I think I've been saying that a long time ago to adjust the tax bracket. It's way out of line already.
Correct.
And there are so many adjustments.
So clearly it
in
needs
the
to be
economy.
done, Dr. Lamberte, no? And would you say it would be good for the economy if we make those adjustments already?
Yeah, I think so. I think, as I mentioned, it's not about the tax rates, it's about tax administration that's really pulling behind.
And very
also.
briefly, Dr. Lamberte, no? At least I can speak for my proposal, no? In my proposal, there are still 7 brackets. In 1994, 1997, you had 7 brackets. Of course, how much I want to reduce those brackets, not to make things simpler. But there is a constitutional command on progressivity also. Now, having said that, Mr. Chairman, I thought it best to maintain the 7 brackets at the moment, as far as the proposal is concerned, to jumpstart the discussion, 1. 2, realizing that in 1997, we achieved the highest ever tax effort over GDP or revenue effort over GDP at roughly 18%, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, Dr. Lamberte?
Yeah, that's correct. And from there on, it slide
From
out.
there on, once you had, among others, this bracket creep, so to speak, ang nangyari ngayon, nung pinahirapan natin yung mga taxpayer, at tumaas ngayon yung kanilang tax bracket, at dahil sa inflation, which is the worst form of tax, Dr. Lamberte, dahil dyan, ang nangyari, bumaba ang tax effort natin at revenue effort natin, at ang response ng gobyerno ay naging yung nagbabayad na rin naman ang lalo natin pahirapan. Parang ganun lumalabas Dr. Lamberte, di ba?
Yeah, that's correct.
So that's a correct thing to say, no?
Yes, that's correct.
Now,
In
as a
in
starting-
many
yes.
in some jurisdictions, they achieve small I mean
Yes.
smaller number of tax brackets,
Correct.
but still it's a progressive
Correct.
system. But for purposes of ensuring that we have a progressive tax system,
Yes.
I agree with you with the 7
Okay.
brackets, but with
did
adjustments.
And what we did with our proposal is basically using inflation since 94 up to the present to increase those deductions and those exemptions and the brackets itself, so that you would have a similar situation way back in 1997. That is my proposal, Dr. Lamberde. So hindi to hula-hula na ginawa. Eto, tinignan natin yung inflation rate, binalik natin sa, which was properly debated then, and I was a member of the House then, in 94 to 97, na binalik lang natin in those, basically in that point in time. Now, hopefully, if we do the same thing, then it would be easier anyway for government to collect, and it is a fairer system in that sense. And realizing that, as I mentioned earlier, na in 1997, we had the highest tax effort as a percentage of GDP. So would you support such a move, Dr. Lamberte?
One is support adjustments, but I have to carefully work out the numbers. I have to be careful also
Yes.
with the numbers,
Yeah.
because I don't like to have a
Yes.
case in which we will be overshooting
Yes.
what we want.
Yes.
No?
Remember,
So-
what
so,
we did
yeah.
is use inflation for each of those brackets.
Mm.
That's one, no? And then finally, Dr. Lamberde, is that would you consider also? Yes.
Okay. Using inflation, the way we compute CPI is for all. No. And again, if you do it to have one number for everybody, you might end up with the top brackets, getting more instead of the lower bracket that you want. So that's why I said I have to work out the numbers, check the recent FIES data we have.
Finally, Dr. Lamberte, how long will it take you and the others, I suppose, invited here, to come out with a proposal for this committee to consider?
By the way, earlier there was actually a proposal to review the tax system we have more comprehensive manner, and I don't know where the chairman wants to go. But if you're just talking about this particular income tax,
Parang, hindi naman tayo nawawala, sir. We know where we want to go. We'd like to go towards a more progressive and equitable system of taxation. But finding the proper delineation is difficult. Balance between revenue and equity and justice is difficult. But, sir, could you, I just taking up on an earlier point you made regarding indexation not being feasible for all types of taxes and provisions. Could you give us a list of where you think it is a best practice and where it would work, and where you think it doesn't work?
yes, okay. There are
In writing, please, in
there-
writing.
Okay, I can send you a number of studies where
Wag na lang ho study, sana summary na lang ho.
summary. Okay, summary.
Oh, marami na ho tayong study.
Summary of
Opo.
where indexation.
But you can also send us the study
Yes,
as a footnote na lang ho.
Yes, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
So,
we'll establish
Senator
the
Lagos,
literature.
would you like, the floor is still yours, if
Thank you,
you'd like.
Just one final remark. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, for being a bit late with regard to the marginal income earners. I understand that there was a discussion earlier, and coming over to the committee hearing, I reviewed our proposal as well here, and I got a briefing from my staff also of what was occurring in the committee hearing. I just wanted to point out for the record as well, and maybe for the Department of Finance and the BIR to consider. One is the possibility of grossing up our proposal, The proposal of Senator Aquino is at 150. My proposal is at 140. And the reason for that is minimum wage earners earn 140 to 150, thereabouts. No? But knowing that there is such a thing as an optional standard deduction of 40%, The intention was not so much na gross yung 140 or 150. So I made a few computations, and you'd probably end up with 230 thereabouts. If you were to divide 140 times 0.6, or to times it by 1.4, then you end up at 230,000. Okay? Meaning to say, there is a presumptive expense on the part of the marginal income earner of roughly 40%. That way, yung net take-home pay niya, halos pareho na rin na minimum wage earner na hindi na dapat natin pinibisan. That's the idea. So let me clarify the intent of our proposal there. No, that's one point, no? So may presumptive expense na lagay na natin ng 40%. That's a possibility when we craft the final bill, Mr. Chairman, no? That's one. I'd like to take the opportunity as well. One, let me point out, because napakarami, I hear a lot from small income earners, particularly entrepreneurs, Mr. Chairman, it was never contemplated when we were discussing the VAT that the payment or the, what do you call this, the compliance is monthly and quarterly. Okay? Income taxes are also filed quarterly and in some instances monthly. Kung maliit na negosyante ka, mas mahal pa yung compliance cost mo kaysa magbayad ka ng buwis. Mas mahal yung compliance cost. Mag-hire ka ng abogado, mag-hire ka ng accountant, halimbawa, para mag-file ka buwan-buwan na kahit wala kang babayaran, magpa-file ka buwan-buwan ng income tax, ng percentage tax, o di kaya ng VAT, halimbawa, na ang laki-laki ng gastos. No? Na you have to hire so many people. So, I know of many businessmen, many entrepreneurs, na imbes na iniisip nila, paano palakihin yung negosyo nila? How to run their business? Paano palakihin? Most of their time is on compliance. Maybe 2-3 hours a day, or in a week, 1 whole day a week, iniisip nila yung compliance. Masyadong pahirap para doon sa maliliit na negosyante. So siguro itong mga bagay na to ay dapat matalakay din natin. And then finally, Mr. Chairman, as well, no? There are many kinds of taxes, no? And let me put on the record as well that even the SSS na nagtaas, yung, I think pag-ibig lang ang hindi tinataas, ang PhilHealth nagtaas din, kung di ako nagkakamali, these are all payroll taxes na tumaas din. Kaltas sa sweldo rin do. No? So these are payroll taxes also, no? So if we were to add this up, at saka ito matagal ko na rin sinasabi, for presentation purposes, halimbawa sa mga credit rating agencies din natin, pag sinama natin to sa computation natin, mas maganda pa yung revenue to GDP effort natin. Kung isasama rin natin yung income ng PAGCOR, PCSO, halimbawa sa books of accounts natin, sa national government natin, tataas yung revenue effort din natin at hindi siya off-budget item, at there will be less pressure on government to always impose increased taxes. So this is something that I suppose that the Department of Finance should also look into, no? Especially as we discuss right now, the need for amending our tax code, particularly on the income taxes, at itong bonuses, hindi lang ng government employees, kundi ng pribado. Dahil yung sinasabing 13-month pay at bonuses na 30,000, gagamitin ko na rin yung pagkakataong ito, ay 1994 pa. 20 taon nang nakalipas. Ang sweldo ng presidente noon, 25 mil lang. Ang sweldo ngayon, 120 na. So, I think talagang napapanuhan na pag-usapan natin ang mga bagay na to. I think this is one of the most important reforms that this Congress can do between now until 2016. So having said that, Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to speak on
Thank
2
you.
or 3 of the bills that we did file
Yeah,
in this
yeah.
committee.
I think
Maraming salamat po.
the Senator Rector's inputs are always welcome and his expertise. Thank you, Senator. Any other comments on these bills from the body? Dr. Lamberte, can you just submit na lang in writing ho? Or medyo gahol na ho sa oras.
I just wanted to react to
Yeah.
this payroll tax, but
Yeah. Oh, briefly ho, briefly. Yes.
okay. Maybe the good undersecretary will correct me on this one. There's a difference between the pay-as-you-go system and the reserve system. No, the pay-as-you-go system, I think you can do that. Though. But if you have a reserve system, then you have to set that aside, because at the end of the day, that's their money that they will collect. In the pay-as-you-go, it's government that will pick up the bill when it comes to paying. So I think that has to be revisited if you want that.
Just a comment on that, Mr. Chairman. I understand where the Dr. Lambert is coming from when he talks about pay-as-you-go with regard to spending. I also believe in a reserve system, such as the SSS, GSIS, and the Pag-ibig. No, it is a forced savings mechanism. I just wanted to point out that these are also payroll taxes. Hindi ko sinasabi na dapat pakialaman natin kung saan gagastusin yun. All I'm saying is that from
the point of view of the taxpayer.
Not only from the point of view of the taxpayer, but from the point of view of the national government, when we talk to the international credit rating agencies, our revenue effort to GDP is much higher than what we present, because there are off-budget items. And to determine the taxability also of society. So it's an accounting issue, Mr. Chairman. That's all I wanted to point out. No? But I understand that there is a need for sovereign wealth funds, and that itatabi natin to for the retirement of our employees, halimbawa, for a health insurance system. But whenever we increase this as well, it is also a tax. We call it membership contribution here, but in other jurisdictions, they call it a payroll tax. I just wanted to put that on record as well. So I'm not debating the issue of pay-as-you-go. I agree with that. And the need to have reserves as well. No? So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Senator Recto. I think we can, for the moment, leave this issue of... is there anyone on this side of the table who wishes to comment on the measures? Oh, no more? Okay. Thank you. We apologize to the DOT Tieza family because although pinalis natin yung ibang resource person sa FI, si Senator Binay wanted to ask some questions from the DOT, I think regarding the Tieza implementing rules. So,
thank you, Mr. Chair. Siguro I just want an update kasi I remember nung huling hearing, ang pangako ni Commissioner Inares, maglalabas na yung BIR ng IRR. Na tupad ho ba to?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, the honorable members of the committee. So as per the last hearing, BIR sent a letter to Secretary Jimenez dated May 29. But instead of issuing revenue regulation, BIR proposed and attached an amended revenue regulation, amended IRR for the tourism enterprise zones and incentives. And basically, it proposes to limit the enterprises to hotels only and to limit the to provide a geographical limitation, meaning there are no more tourism enterprise zones in Metro Manila, Cebu, Davao City, Palawan, and Boracay. So, our secretary, DOT secretary, replied to Commissioner Kim stating in gist that the proposed amendment is contrary to RA 9593 and contrary to what was agreed upon during the last presidential meeting. And our secretary also asked for a meeting with the Office of the President, and last Tuesday there was a clarificatory meeting attended by the DOT Secretary and Secretary Purisima and the Secretary and Commissioner Kim. And during that meeting, we were advised that President Aquino again categorically directed Commissioner Kim to issue the revenue regulation already without any geographical limitation in accordance with the RA 9593. So basically, the last meeting with the President was very positive on for the tourism. Last Tuesday, Senator.
You said yes.
Mr. Chairman, I was in that meeting with the President, and essentially the modus vivendi with the Department of Tourism was sila na bahala kung saan nila gusto as long as there's a budget cap. So
What's the budget cap?
So they're working out the numbers now.
Okay. Okay. So, does that satisfy
Thank you,
Senator
Mr. Chair.
Binay?
Pero sana nga,
It will be, well, it's
Faster.
moving. I think it's moving, oh. So,
at least medyo nag-move on na tayo dun sa...
yeah, I think Congress
It's
did its part
moving.
in
This
trying
is,
to push the rules, no? It's taken a while, no? So, any other comments from the senator side? Yung tanong ko na lang ho, dito sa Revenue Regulation 16/2011, where you adjusted, this refers to VAT, di ba? Assistant Commissioner Cabreros. Yung 16/2011, if you're earning, your gross income is 1.9 million, you no longer have to file VAT returns and pay VAT. Tama ho ba yan? Is my interpretation of this regulation correct?
16-2011. Under the VAT
16/2011,
law, the threshold
Increasing
for,
the amount of threshold amounts for the sale of
from
residential land.
1.5 million for those who are VAT registrable but does not earn more than 1.5 as an option to register as non-VAT, but they will pay percentage tax. But the 1.5, because part of the VAT law is there's a
I see.
indexation.
It's indexed, yeah.
So the 1.5 got indexed and it's now 1.9 something. 1.9.
Right. So there's no exemption. They still have to file. It's a choice between
Yes.
being VAT registered and
Yes.
Pag
So if
VAT
you're-
registered, Senator Recto was pointing out, every month they have to file the return, di ba? Pero yung percentage tax, how often are the compliance requirements for that?
Monthly rin po.
Also
Yes po.
monthly. Okay. All right. Just wanted to clear that up. I just want to remind also the BIR that not from this meeting, but from the previous meeting, we requested the following information. Breakdown and profile of registered income earners and self-employed professionals per tax bracket from 2010 to 2013. Yung self-employed, i-break down natin per tax bracket so we can compute how much collection, how much revenue loss. Secondly, you remember you gave us the very first meeting on the income tax bills, you gave us the projected revenue loss. You gave us figures for the three bills. All three authors are here now. But you told us these are very rough computations. So have they been smoothened out? Yung computations? Just a reminder, if you could give that
Because
at the next
Mr.
meeting.
Chairman, we requested for data from the BIR.
Ang pagkaalala ko kasi, that was early in the year ang ginamit yung basis for computing the revenue loss was just the compensation income hindi kasama yung self-employed. So that's a 10% na iwan na hindi nasama. So could you give us the official position of the DOF and the BIR on the three bills, and then we can proceed accordingly. And then we also, I remember you made a point when I said that when we lowered the corporate income tax in 1997 from 35 to 32 and then to 30, 35 to 32 initially, there was a drop in collections for 2 years, but from 2000 to 2005, it shows that the corporate income tax collections increased, and you said there are many factors for that, and you would give us a list. Could you, do you remember that? Yeah, basically, sinabi natin na in 1997, when we passed the CTRP, the corporate income tax went from 35 to 32. And then for the following 2 years, 98 and 99, the collections went down for corporate. But for the next 5 years, they went up. And then I said, could this be a case of 1 step forward, 2 steps back, or the other way around? 1 step back, 2 steps forward, rather. Meaning, you think long term, no? So, ano yung causes for that? Kasi if you don't give us a reason, we will assume it's because they were incentivized by the lower tax rate to comply, unless you have a more plausible explanation. No? So those three, in addition to the earlier requested
Mr.
information.
Chairman, I think it would be
Yeah.
best that you take a look also that because of the VAT law also, we reduced the corporate income tax further
To 30%, that's
to
right.
30%. Because as we debated it then, light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, yeah.
And which served us well during the housing crisis in the U.S. in 2008 and 9.
Yeah, Senator Aquino.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask BIR why it's so difficult to get this data, because all of the hearings I attend in Ways and Means are always asking for data, and it seems that it's the same story every single time, no? And it's quite unfortunate because it's hard for us to do our jobs if in fact I said the exact same thing in the last hearing, the exact same thing, no? So I'd like to understand why it's so difficult to provide data. Number one. Number two, who is responsible for keeping all of this data in BIR? Is it a particular office in BIR or sino po yan?
In the BIR, the data warehouse is being, it's with our IT group. There's an information systems operation service. I'm with the legal service. And then data extracts whenever, and we do receive a lot of requests. So hindi lang po Senate, hindi lang Congress, ang dami-dami po. Whenever we do receive requests, the request is being forwarded to our IT group for data extraction. But it's not that easy to data extract because you need to define ano yung formula. The return has several fields. And then when you say we need tax payments, anong tax payment? Tax due, withholding, or net payable? So there's a need to define a formula for the data extraction. And then once the data is extracted, it's given to our policy and planning service. That's where our statistics divisions is, and sila yung nag-check ng data, whether feasible ba na yan yung result ng data extraction, kasi we have to rule out garbage in, garbage out.
So, ma'am, this data is available? Or is it not available? Is it available?
It's a raw, as Senator Binay said, it's a raw data na pwedeng i-extract, but defining what to extract is one thing, and then processing what was extracted to conform to what is required is another thing.
I'm trying to pinpoint. So it's available. I don't think the committee was remiss in detailing what data you want, no? So it's available. If it's just a matter of priority, I'd like to know why the Senate is not being prioritized by BIR in terms of providing data. Diba? Kung kadami-daming mga nagre-request, siguro naman the Senate and the Congress are top of that list, diba?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I tried to look into that also because there's a data warehouse, but there needs to be a lot of cleansing. You need to, kasi otherwise, if you don't cleanse the data, there's garbage in, garbage out. So you need to have some sort of data integrity checks.
When it's not available. Because I want to understand, no, is the data available or it's not available? Because if it's garbage in, garbage out, then it's not available.
There is data available, but it's not 100% because we do have problems about late encoding. Not all our district offices are processing and submitting returns information online real time. Merong encoding na nangyayari, so there are backlogs in encoding. So sometimes information, I remember last meeting, Senator Angara was pointing out to the BIR, but iba yung figures.
So accuracy is a problem.
It's not accuracy, but the run date. Kasi sometimes the financial report or the annual report of the BIR is released on a certain date, but current requests for information, magre-run sila, so factored in na yung mga late encoding. So it will produce a different number from what was previously published in the annual report.
Okay. So there's a problem in terms of accuracy because of the run date.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman, maybe I think you've defined naman the years, diba, Mr. Chairman? You've defined the years that you're requesting for.
Yes.
So that should be available. If the data is there, the formulas naman I think are par for the course. We didn't really ask for any extrapolated data. This is all par for the course data. Maybe it's a matter of prioritization, no,
Very
ma'am?
frustrating, actually, Senator.
What is the priority of the Senate in terms of asking for data?
All those requesting from us are priority, but
No. I'd like to ask now, what is the priority of the Senate in terms of data? Are we number 2 on the list, number 3 on the list? I understand if
Nasa
the
top-
president
nasa
maybe is
top
number
five.
1, but siguro naman nasa top 5 kami.
Oo naman, sir. Kaya lang, like
Pag
what-
income tax, medyo
just
nagpapalit yung
just to
priority
clarify
dito.
on the coverage, like say for example, Senator Angara, the chairman requested for calendar year 2012, defined na 2012, pero
Yes.
internally we have to we have to cleanse the data because the run date of 2012 produces several, the 2012 data produces several figures because it depends on the run date. Like 2012 per financial statement or the annual report of the BIR is fixed already. This was run near August of 2013. But if we request our IT group to run 2012 data, it will give us a different number because, as I said, encoded na or pasok na sa system yung mga late encoding na mga 2012.
So, it's a matter of as of, di ba? Parang as of August,
this
as
date,
of
as of
July,
this date, yeah.
as of this day. So,
So
you
as
know,
of today, let's ask for it as of today.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, kahit hindi nga as of today, kahit as of January, okay lang
Yeah,
naman.
yeah,
But
that's fine. The latest,
I think
latest you have.
What's important here, Assistant Commissioner, is we have data to base our decisions on. Because in that case, if kayo rin, nahihirapan kayo with data, how can we decide on any of the data that you also provide if kayo mismo aren't really sure about the integrity of that data? Diba? So, when you tell us, we cannot pass this bill because the revenue will be less, how can we believe you if you don't provide us the rest of the data? So I think that's crucial, number one. Number two, I would like to think that as a co-equal branch of government, we do have some level of priority in terms of getting that data. And the chairman's hearings are not 1 week after each other. In fact, Mr. Chairman, when was the last time we had the hearing? Was it a month ago?
In May.
In May.
But one of these things we're asking for, like the more accurate projections of revenue loss, we asked for that during our first hearing.
Which was?
Which was sometime in January, I think.
January. It's been 8 months already, ma'am. No? So, it's quite frustrating for us. We do want to cooperate. We do want to push for these measures, but we need that data. And again, considering you have a whole division handling this data, I don't really understand why you can't provide the committee the proper data, because it's difficult for us to decide on these matters. No? I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, for that
No, thank you.
moment.
Thank you. It's a very useful comment for us. We really have a hard time proceeding, I think. There are 3 good bills.
Mr. Chairman, maybe I could
Yes, Senator, please.
help enlighten as well, no? Palagay ko, kung gugustuhin ng DOF, pwede naman. It's only if you are one with us in trying to have a fairer and more equitable system of taxation. Halimbawa sa income tax. Palagay ko, hindi na dapat natin i-debate whether we should adjust the rates or not. Because clearly, it's been 20 years since we've adjusted many of these rates. So if we proceed from that, na kinakailangan na, dahil darating ang taon, halimbawa sa 2017, na posible na lahat tayo isang single rate na lang, na 32%. Halimbawa, no? If we see that happening already, we can all agree, yes, let's adjust the rates. Then best effort with whatever data we have, make that best judgment. There are 3 proposals, and in these 3 proposals, there's a mixture that we can do later on, and make a decision. The worst is indecision. And like I said, as inflation go up, that is the higher form of tax. From 2000 to the present today, what has the inflation rate been? About 140%. From the year 2000 to today, we're talking about a 32% tax rate. But if you take a look at inflation, from 2000 to where we are today, that's almost 140%. Diba? So, mas malaking cost yun. So, Mr. Chairman, kung gugustuhin, best effort, we can get the data. But first, to have that mindset, now we need to adjust these rates moving forward.
Senator Recto, may I ask you something? Because you were very active during the sin tax laws. Pag may gustong computation to tweak the data, overnight kayang ibigay, di ba?
Sabi ko nga, Mr. Chairman,
Kung gusto mo, di ba?
with Senator Binay, that kung pataas ang buwis, mabilis ang data.
Overnight, may bagong computation.
Sinawasan natin ang buwis, napakatagal ng data. Yan ang naging karanasan ko
Yan ang correlation.
sa Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Yun ang lumalabas. But you know, we also have the subpoena duces tecum power. But, you know, we don't want to have a heavy hand in using that power. But, you know, can we ask for, with finality for these documents at the next hearing? Yusek, can we get your personal assurance?
Mr.
on that
Chairman,
one?
I have a practical problem. Is that we based our revenue loss on the latest data which is provided by
BIR.
BIR. So we cannot, hindi naman namin pwedeng hulain eh. In the case of...
So have they provided you the data on the self-employed, which is stopping you from making an accurate...
Because when I looked at the data, there's something wrong with your data. So pinabalik ko eh, kasi parang it doesn't stand to the common sense test.
Why not?
So...
But can we get an assurance of the data that stands up to the common sense test in the next 2 weeks?
Siguro, Mr. Chairman, ang
Kasi
gagawin ko...
we can just go on ad infinitum between the two of you eh. Diba? Good cup, bad cup lang kayo.
Ang gagawin ko, Mr. Chairman,
doesn't work eh.
Mag-opisina na lang siguro ako sa BI in the meantime just to be able to
the
get
point
the
is
data.
just as with the FI and and reinforced by my colleagues, just as with the FI and the TIMTA, diba? We're trying to help you guys
yes,
here.
sir.
Oh, and we hope you can help us naman.
Yeah,
so we want to have that cooperative role rather than, we also have coercive tools at our disposal, but we'd rather not use them.
It's
diba?
true, Mr. Chairman. Well, I'm very sympathetic on the proposals on the income tax return, but just a reality check also is that we're planning to increase investments as a percentage to GDP to 5. Education also will increase. Health also will increase. Ang kwan lang namin, if let's look at it holistically, kung ang magiging loss here is, let's say for example, negative 0.5% of GDP, can we get something else from, let's say, from fiscal incentive para pang tapat? So
that's what we've been asking you, and we're waiting for the answer from you. That's why we asked you,
Mr. Chairman,
at the start of the hearing, before you came, Senator Recto, Senator Binay and I were here, and we asked them to put it through the lens of the fiscal incentives, their preferred fiscal incentives, the actual data, so we can really see.
Correct. I agree with you, Mr. Chairman, but let me add, let me answer you, Sec Paul, on some of the suggestions as well, not necessarily with the fiscal incentives also. Bakit hindi natin? Basically, Yusek Paul, what you're saying is that by 2016, you want to wrap up spending on education, healthcare, infrastructure, 5% of GDP. Parang gano'n eh, ang sinasabi mo.
We're already ramping up, but that's the target.
Correct,
because
there's a target.
We need, apart from being a consumption-led growth, we want to be an investment-led growth.
I agree. Walang problema doon eh. Let me give you a way of doing it. One, Malampaya. Magkano ba yan? How much are we collecting every year sa Malampaya? Bakit hindi natin amenda na yung batas yan, gamitin natin sa national budget? Isa. PCSO. PAGCOR. As an example, Teka, there are many There are many ways of going about this, Yusek Paul, There are many routes that we can undertake. What about the COCO levy funds for agriculture? 70 billion yon. 30 billion kinokolekta natin every year sa Malampaya. Bakit hindi natin gamitin to? In addition to your fiscal incentives, halimbawa. But it also makes sense to give a tax break now. Na dito sa maraming manggagawa natin na 20 years na. So I think we can all be innovative and creative in identifying these other sources of revenue. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I agree, Senator. And to use Yusek Paul's phrase, if we want to think holistically, we just don't think about the spending side, as Professor Ron Mendoza of AIM said. You look at the revenue and the spending side, diba? What can you give the people? No doubt that the spending of the government, it will redound long-term to the benefit of everyone in this room and more. But seriously, we've also seen that wala nang naiiwan talaga sa pangkaraniwang Pilipino. So let's work on those things. So we'll request that data at the next hearing, and siguro that's the last time we're going to request. Thank you. we'll adjourn the session. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, siguro kung pwede lang sa next hearing, there's a DTI representative.
Yes, we will. And then 1 month na lang siguro, no, to deadline for the Team 10 for the FI, and then we can. Next. Thank you.